Hi and welcome back to the CQIToolkit tutorial series. Today we're going to be looking at the blue module, which is the quality outputs, and we're going to start with this statistical analysis. Click that. We have a number of statistical tests within this tool. So on the tabs we've got the mean and standard deviation, which will produce a control chart. We've got the Pearson's Correlation. We have Spearmans Correlation, which gives you a similar result as the Pearson's Correlation, but it's in ranked order. And then we've got a t-test. Now there's lots of other statistical analysis you can do within a project, but these are the ones we find most productive and most useful in our daily working life. So we'll go through them one by one and I'll show you how to input onto them. But we always give people a warning: do not use any statistical analysis unless you're sure this is the right test you need to be doing for it. So you probably need some understanding of what statistics you want to be looking at and what outcomes you're looking for within a project. So we'll begin with the mean and standard deviation. We press the blue to add new data. So this can be named, and we can name it anything. So if we say Monday, and then we're just going to base this off a very random thing. So we can say number of falls within a ward. So Monday you might have 1 fall. Tuesday you might have 0. Wednesday we might put in 4 falls. Obviously if this was a ward you should be closed down at this point, but this is just an example. So we're just going to keep this very basic and put on Friday, say 3, we'll add Saturday, and we'll say 6, and Sunday we'll say 5. So as you can see down the side, the chart starts to reduce immediately. We have the mean, and we have 2 charts. We've got the standard deviation plus 1, and we've got the standard deviation minus 1. It's also broken down at the top. It gives you your standard deviation, there's your plus and minus figures, I mean there, and you can actually export this as a chart. Now, statistically speaking, as a control chart, you would have to do some analysis outside this tool. It will produce the information, but you will need to sort of do some further analysis just to show you what the data actually means. Because this has been random data we've entered, it's showing you that there's probably some work needs to be done Saturday because it sort of falls outside the standard deviations. Anything under in this one you're probably looking at okay, but because I said this was based on falls, it's probably all a concern and an issue anyway, but it's just showing you that because there is such an uptake on Saturday, it's actually falling outside of the standard deviation. There's probably really is a concern in this one. So I'll save that and we'll move on to the next test. For our next bit of statistical analysis, we're looking at the Pearson's Correlation. And what we do in this is we analyse 2 sets of data and we'll see if there's any correlation between the 2 of them. So I've started populating it with some information, but I'm just going to add on a few more bits of information to actually start generating this chart. So click the blue, add new data, your data set 1, enter your data in there, and your data set 2, I'm going to start inputting some information. So as you can see, your scatter chart starts to reduce almost immediately, and what you're looking for on the Pearson's Correlation is you should have a line of analysis and your information should be clustered fairly close to the line. Anything that falls outside the scope, such as this bit of information here, there's probably reasons for concern. So it'll give you all your statistical analysis up at the top, but what this one's telling you is on the one tail significance, it's telling you it's significant, and on 2 tails also confirming that, so it is a reason of concern. Now this one's probably relating to that last line because I've tried to keep the information pretty similar all the way down and then went completely out of scope. So that bit of information is probably the one that we need to be concerned about, and it's also shown in the chart down here. Now there's also the tick box at the top of the chart, which will let you export that later on, and then we'll move on to the Spearmans Correlation. Now with this Spearmans Correlation, it's very similar to the Pearson's Correlation. What you're doing is you're analysing 2 sets of data against each other, and you want to see if there's any significance within them. But for this one, you need to rank the data. So for the ranking, what would possibly be looking at would be times of day. So that could be anything from a change on shift. So you might look at a 9 to 5 shift pattern, and then you would see if something was more significant at a certain time of day. Now, if you work in a ward or a care home or anything along those lines, you probably have shifts and changes in patterns, and you might notice some real significance in the frequency of some data on shift change. So if it was, example, we use falls as an early example, we could look at falls again, and there might be some more significance on changeover shifts. But again, that's something you might have a hypothesis in your head that you think that's the reason. We can actually go and start inputting data to actually see if there is any significance in it. So I'm going to go through and just start populating some data and just show you the charts starting to generate. So if we say 9 and 10, 11, 12, we'll make 12 the changeover and shift, and we'll actually up that number. But again, this would be based on real data. These are just examples. And that starts showing you. So then we've got our frequency chart, and it's showing you everything's pretty similar, because I've tried to keep it all similar across the chart, and I'll put something completely out of scope just so you can start to see it populating. Our chart's not showing any real significance on it, but we can actually tell by looking at the statistical analysis at the top. It's telling you that that is a significant bit of analysis. Again, for the chart, there's a tick box there. What we're looking at is the tailed values. So it's telling you that this data is significant, and that's how I would say it. I think the chart's just because it's showing you as rank times, it's not showing anything completely outside the scope, but you can tell by looking at the results that this is a significant piece of data. And our final one is a t-test. Now, t-test is something you may have done in school, and it's possibly something you don't use very often. It's very, very similar in the inputting to the Pearson's correlation. As you add it and you rank 2 sets of data. I'll start populating some. This one doesn't have a chart, so what we're looking at is just the significant values on the results tab. Keep going to, you need to start saving it. It is actually pointing out this is significant, but the data set we've got in 3 pieces of data, comparing them against each other. We're looking at one-tailed. If I kept adding on, we can then start going into the two-tailed analysis. And that's how you would do the statistical analysis. Now, it is something, again, we do give a warning about. So just make sure you know what each test does before you actually start populating with data, so you can see if anything's significant. These ones I've just went for complete extremes, which is showing significance. But when you actually find out you're actually looking at real-life data, you might find that a lot of it, or a lot of the concepts you've got in your head to see if it's significant, don't actually turn out to be. So it is something we do give a warning from. But that's it for statistical analysis. In the next lesson, we're going to be looking at the return of investment tool.